In a world where everyone's life is on display, sometimes the cost of fame is darker than anyone could imagine. For Bianca Devins, her online presence wasn't just a connection, it became the pathway to a deadly encounter. Her tragic story reveals how admiration turned into obsession, with devastating consequences. Bianca Devins was an 18-year-old social media enthusiast with a growing following. But in July 2019, her life was cut short by someone she thought was a friend, a follower who blurred the line between admiration and deadly obsession. This case shocked the nation and opened questions about the dangers lurking behind digital connections. This isn't just a story of social media gone wrong. It's the story of a young woman, her dreams, and a family's heartbreak. Bianca was a beloved daughter, sister, and friend. Her tragic end has forever changed the lives of those who loved her and has left a haunting mark on everyone who followed her story. Bianca Michelle Devins was a bright, creative, and passionate young woman from Utica, New York. Born on October 2, 2001, Bianca grew up in a close-knit family that always supported her interests. She was known for her love of art, music, and creativity, a personality that drew people in both in person and online. Those who knew her personally remember her kindness, her empathy, and the unique way she expressed herself. She loved drawing, particularly anime-style art, and spent hours developing her skills, hoping to one day work in a creative field. Bianca's vibrant presence could light up any room, and her family knew her as a loving sister and daughter. At 17, Bianca's world expanded as she explored social media platforms like Instagram, Tumblr, and Discord. She shared her thoughts, her art, and her journey through the struggles many teens face. She found a community that welcomed her, where she could connect with others and explore her identity. Bianca was open about her challenges with mental health, connecting with others who understood her experiences. Her transparency made her even more relatable and authentic to her growing following. Among her growing circle of online friends was Brandon Clark, a 21-year-old who shared many of the same social media spaces as Bianca. Clark initially seemed like another supportive figure in her life. They met through Instagram and bonded over shared interests, attending events together and building what seemed to be a friendly connection. But as time went on, people close to Bianca began to notice Clark's behavior shifting. For Clark, Bianca was more than just a friend. Despite their connection initially being platonic, his admiration began to feel possessive, and he often grew jealous of other people in her life. Close friends and family members noticed this change, and while Bianca valued him as a friend, she was clear about her boundaries. However, Clark's attachment only grew stronger, and his behavior became increasingly intense. Many in Bianca's life became concerned, but no one could have predicted the tragic path this relationship would take. In 2019, Bianca's hometown of Utica, New York, was a small yet vibrant community with deep connections among its residents. Utica, nestled in central New York State, had its share of challenges, but was known for its close community spirit. Here, Bianca found both a supportive offline network in her family and friends and an online world that allowed her to connect with thousands more. Like many young people of her generation, social media was a way for Bianca to explore new ideas, share her thoughts, and meet people beyond the boundaries of her town. Platforms like Instagram and Discord allowed her to build a following and connect with people from all over. But this also opened her life to people whose intentions were far from innocent. Bianca's world was a mix of the real and digital, where friendship,
of July
art,
13,
and personal
2019,
expression
Bianca
thrived,
Devins and
yet where the
Brandon
risks
Clark
of internet
attended a
connections
concert in New
remained
York City.
hidden. They were two people who had met through social media, connected over shared interests, and spent time together both online and offline. Bianca, a bright 17-year-old with artistic ambitions, was accustomed to meeting friends through her online community. Brandon Clark was older, but to Bianca, he was a trusted friend. The night seemed typical, a concert with friends, laughter, music, and a drive back home to Utica. But as they began the trip, something changed. Conversations grew tense. What started as a friendly outing took on a darker tone as Clark's jealousy began to surface. He was unhappy with Bianca's interactions with others, feeling threatened by her openness and connections. Bianca, who had always been clear about their friendship, tried to defuse the situation, unaware of just how deep his anger ran. By the early morning hours of July 14th, the car pulled onto a quiet dead-end road in Utica. Here, Clark's jealousy and frustration reached a breaking point. The calm night was shattered in a moment of violence as Clark attacked Bianca, ending her life with a brutal act that would later shock the world. But Clark's actions didn't stop there. He took photographs of what he had done, images that he would soon post on social media platforms for others to see. In the stillness of that early morning, as the car's headlights cast a faint glow on the road, Clark made a decision that would bring horror to Bianca's loved ones and beyond. He documented the crime in real time, sending images across Discord, where friends, family, and strangers would soon see them. These photos, shared without a second thought, spread quickly, leaving her online community devastated. At this point, Clark made a 911 call. "My name is Brandon," he told the dispatcher calmly. "The victim is Bianca Devins." In those words, he confessed, and in the moments that followed, he admitted his intention to take his own life as well. Police rushed to the scene, where they found Clark lying on a green tarp next to Bianca's body. As officers approached, Clark took a knife to his own neck in a desperate attempt at self-harm. But law enforcement quickly intervened, preventing him from causing further injury to himself and taking him into custody. With Clark now in custody and Bianca's family devastated by the news, the story was far from over. The images Clark posted had spread far and wide, leading to an outpouring of grief, disbelief, and anger. As investigators examined Clark's online activity, his obsession with Bianca became painfully clear. Questions arose about the true nature of his feelings for her and the warning signs that may have gone unnoticed. What had driven Clark to such extremes? And how could a connection forged through social media lead to such a tragic outcome? These questions hung heavy in the days that followed, leaving the world to piece together the truth of Bianca Devins' final moments. The news of Bianca Devins' death reverberated throughout her hometown of Utica and far beyond. For those who knew her, the shock was unbearable. Friends and family members described her as kind-hearted, creative, and deeply connected to those around her. The tragic loss left an irreplaceable void in the lives of those closest to her. As the community processed this unimaginable event, emotions ranged from sorrow to anger. People struggled to understand how such a brutal act could happen to someone so young and full of promise. Local vigils were held in her memory, where her family and friends gathered to honor her life and say their goodbyes. The outpouring of grief was overwhelming, a reflection of how deeply she was loved and how senseless her loss felt to those who cared for her. But the impact wasn't limited to those who knew Bianca personally. As news of her death spread, members of the wider community were left shaken and fearful. Bianca's story became a painful reminder of the risks that can accompany online interactions. Parents and young people alike felt the weight of this tragedy, realizing how quickly admiration could turn dangerous. Conversations erupted in homes, schools, and community centers as people grappled with questions about online safety, the potential dangers of internet relationships, and the tragic outcomes that can arise when boundaries are crossed. For the people of Utica, Bianca's story became a haunting reminder that danger can sometimes emerge from the most unexpected places. As news outlets picked up the story, the case of Bianca Devins captured the attention of media worldwide. It became one of the most widely reported crimes involving social media in recent memory. The horrifying detail that her killer had posted images of the crime on social media added an entirely new layer to the tragedy. News headlines echoed the shock, detailing how the images had spread across Instagram, Discord, and other platforms. Social media companies came under fire as the public questioned how such graphic content could be shared so widely and remain online for days. The images spread quickly, reaching thousands of people, many of whom were traumatized by what they saw. In response, the hashtag #RipBianca trended across multiple platforms as people shared tributes, artwork, and messages of support. Her friends and followers posted their favorite memories of Bianca, celebrating her kindness and her creative spirit. Amid the grief, however, there was outrage. outraged that such images could circulate so freely, and that people's curiosity had led to the continued spread of the content. Family members, especially her mother and sister, were deeply affected, forced to see these images and relive the horror repeatedly as the photos continued to surface. For her family, the trauma of her loss was compounded by the endless struggle to remove these images from the internet. Her mother, Kim Devins, became a strong advocate for more significant controls on social media, pressing platforms to take responsibility for preventing the spread of harmful content. Community members and advocates joined in, voicing support for Bianca's Law, a legislative effort to hold social media companies accountable when graphic images are shared. The law gained widespread attention, pushing for real change to prevent other families from experiencing the same tragedy. Bianca's story had transformed from a personal loss into a call for action, sparking conversations on internet safety, accountability, and the rights of families to protect their loved ones' memories. As the media coverage continued, people around the world became familiar with Bianca's story. Her case became more than just a headline. It became a symbol of the importance of safety in the digital age. In a world where millions of people connect through screens, Bianca's story served as a stark reminder of the darker realities that can lie behind the online world. It's a story that has left an indelible mark, sparking a movement and reminding us all of the need for vigilance and compassion in a time when connections can sometimes turn deadly. Following the tragic death of Bianca Devins, the legal system moved swiftly. Brandon Clark was charged with second-degree murder shortly after his arrest in July 2019. The evidence against him was clear. Photographs and social media posts from the crime scene left little room for doubt. This case shocked both the local community and those far beyond, but it also raised significant legal questions, particularly regarding the spread of graphic content on social media. As the community processed its grief, preparations for Clark's trial began, and the case drew the attention of legal experts and the public alike. In February 2020, after initially pleading not guilty, Brandon Clark changed his plea to guilty. This decision shocked some and relieved others, as it meant the family and community would be spared the trauma of a prolonged trial. By pleading guilty, Clark admitted to his actions, which left little room for defense or mitigation. Despite this plea, he later attempted to withdraw his guilty admission, claiming that he felt pressured and that he had not fully understood his rights. This attempt to reverse his plea, however, was denied by the court, affirming the gravity of his earlier confession and the impact it had on all those affected by the case. On March 16, 2021, Clark was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison, a sentence that reflected both the brutality of the crime and the need for justice on behalf of Bianca and her family. During the sentencing, Bianca's family had the chance to speak directly to Clark, expressing the immense pain and heartbreak they had endured since her death. Her mother, Kim Devins, shared the lasting impact that Bianca's death had left on their lives, describing the anguish of losing her daughter in such a tragic way. Her words served as a powerful reminder of the human cost behind the legal proceedings, a reminder that went beyond the courtroom walls. For Clark, the sentence meant that he would face a lengthy period of confinement, a consequence fitting the crime in the eyes of many. However, for Bianca's family, the sentence was a step toward justice, but could never truly heal the loss they had experienced. The courtroom proceedings served as a moment for the family to seek closure, though they knew that the memory of Bianca would always remain. Following his sentencing, Clark made attempts to appeal the outcome, citing his original claims of feeling pressured into the guilty plea. However, the court found these arguments unconvincing, maintaining that Clark had willingly accepted responsibility for his actions. Legal professionals noted that the overwhelming evidence against him, combined with his social media posts and 911 confession, left little ground for an appeal. The legal proceedings stood firm, and his conviction remained in place, with the court unwilling to consider any reduction in his sentence. In the months and years following the case, the tragedy of Bianca's death continued to spark discussions on the responsibilities of social media companies. Her mother, Kim Devins, along with supporters and advocates, called for increased controls to prevent the sharing of graphic content online. This advocacy led to Bianca's Law, a legislative effort that, if passed, would require social media platforms to more closely monitor and prevent the spread of violent images. For her family, this law became a mission, a way to turn Bianca's tragedy into a movement that could protect others from experiencing similar horrors. The courtroom may have closed its doors on the case, but Bianca's legacy lives on through the efforts to bring awareness and change. Her family continues to remember her as the kind, artistic soul she was, and hopes that through their advocacy, her story will make a difference for future generations. With Brandon Clark serving a prison sentence of 25 years to life, some sense of justice has been achieved for the tragic death of Bianca Devins. Yet, the case has left behind questions that linger in the minds of her family, friends, and followers. Bianca's family has sought answers not only about the circumstances that led to her loss, but also about the broader impact of her story in a digital age where lives are lived publicly, often without considering the potential consequences. One question that remains is how such graphic content could be shared so widely and so quickly on social media. The images that Clark posted continued to circulate online, despite the efforts of Bianca's family and countless supporters to remove them. It's a question that has challenged social media companies and lawmakers alike. How can we prevent another tragedy like this from being amplified and spread across the internet? Bianca's story has become more than a crime. It is a story that speaks to the very nature of human connection in a digital world. Her death reminds us that admiration can sometimes mask darker feelings, and that the boundaries between online friendships and real-world relationships can blur in ways that are unexpected and sometimes dangerous. Her family has worked tirelessly to protect her memory and ensure that her story helps bring awareness to these issues, hoping that Bianca's legacy might serve as a warning to others. Through their advocacy, Bianca's family has shown incredible resilience, turning their grief into a mission to make the online world a safer place. Bianca's Law represents this legacy, a call for accountability from social media companies and a plea to prevent future families from enduring the same pain. Her story reminds us of the complex realities of a world where personal lives are shared publicly, and it has become a call to prioritize safety, respect, and responsibility in the digital spaces we all navigate. As we conclude this story, let us remember Bianca Devins as more than just a case. She was a talented young woman with dreams, ambitions, and loved ones who will always cherish her memory. For those watching, her story is a reminder to approach online relationships with care and to consider the responsibilities that come with sharing our lives publicly. If Bianca's story has touched you, consider supporting efforts to make social media a safer space, one where boundaries are respected and lives are valued. In honoring Bianca's life, we can also work to create change. We can support efforts to strengthen online protections and advocate for policies that protect users from harm. By taking these actions, we contribute to a world where stories like Bianca's become rare, a world where young people can connect safely with their dreams and potential intact. This is the legacy that Bianca's family envisions, a legacy that transforms loss into hope for a safer, more compassionate digital age. Thank you for joining us in honoring the life and story of Bianca Devins. In our next episode, we'll explore another case where the lines between online admiration and obsession led to unexpected consequences. What happens when a virtual connection takes a dark turn? How can we spot the warning signs before it's too late? Join us next time as we uncover another true story of online relationships with tragic real-world outcomes. If Bianca's story moved you, and if you're interested in learning more about how we can make online spaces safer, please subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay updated on future stories. By joining our community, you're supporting an ongoing conversation around safety, awareness, and change. Don't miss the next episode. Together, let's continue exploring these important stories.